Alrighty, let's do some yoga. Let's start in a cross legged position or sitting, however you feel comfortable. Take a breath. And let's open our practice up with a bow. Cool. So let's just jump right in. And no pun intended, because we're going straight into frog. But if frog's not in your practice, we can always. Yes, we're jumping into the frog. But you can always start easy with just a child's pose. If you don't really want to go into frog, but you can always ease into it. But to get into the frog, we'll start with the toes pointed together, the knees slightly outward, and then just kind of bring your torso to the ground and let those toes splay out a little bit. So we're getting into these hip creases, letting the gravity work on this external rotation of the hip. And I've got a nice squishy carpet underneath me, so it feels really good on my body, but you might need some padding underneath knees or torso. And you're welcome to come in and out and figure it out. Child's pose if it gets kind of funky. So we'll just explore here for a little bit, feeling the inner thighs, the inner hip joint. Maybe a little bit of lower back is in here. You can decide also if you want your toes more pointed out and extended, or you can bring the toes together to touch. Just finding the edge that works for you today. And this is our first pose, so start as small as you want. It can always grow. I was very overzealous a few weeks ago, and I was like, the papers are gonna be out. They were not, because it was still winter, but they are totally out now, and it's really fun to imagine all the little frogs everywhere. So this is our honoring of the spring finally arriving in our little peeper frog here, opening up. It's very warm out here in the Northeast today. Sun is shining. Windows are open, fresh air. So I hope you can find some fresh air too. Breathing into the frog. If it gets a little uncomfortable, just seeing if we can stay, if this is a manageable discomfort. Even if we want to run away, can we stay with it for a couple minutes? Just a couple minutes. Noticing the dialogue that's appearing around the physical sensation. Can we lean into the sensation, not resist it? Can we let it spread out until it's almost like everything kind of dissolves and the edge is embodied into space? When does it all just move into that spaciousness quality? Where does it start to feel comfortable? Just a couple more breaths. And to get out, we can just kind of bring our toes back together, bring our hands by our shoulders, and just push the hips back. And we'll come and sit back. Bring the legs out wide and just give it a little bit of a rock back and forth. We're not doing like a full dragonfly, but we're just spreading out all these different parts here in the legs, feeling the hip joint, the way that you can kind of rotate the toes in and rotate the feet out. This is how mobile our hips are. And there's a natural edge, there's a natural ending. You can feel it when you point your toes in. It's like, okay, that's as far as that goes. And just feeling our range of motion here, turning in and turning out. And we're like lubricating this hip joint here by feeling into this motion and breathing into it. Good. And taking any movement now to kind of shake any of that out. There's still kind of some tenderness in the tops of the legs or inner thighs. You give it a little rub. You could always roll your body against the floor a little bit, getting into the meaty parts that are still maybe holding on in the muscles. Just give your body a little roll on the ground. At least just the pelvic bowl can just roll across the floor. Just feel the contents moving, and the bony part is just mushing into the ground, coming up against the surface, surface against surface. Fun. Yay. Now we're going to move into sleeping swan. So let's just start in a tabletop position. Find the floor. Let's extend the right leg up and back at first, maybe even kick up a little bit just to feel that different kind of relationship to gravity and the hip socket. And we'll just bring that right knee up to the right wrist and set up for our sleeping swan. Wherever the knee lands is good. You don't have to adjust to make that shin a 90-degree angle. Any angle is fine. We're not forcing. And we'll take a little rock back and forth. Just another way of seeing where's that hip socket? Where does the femur bone connect? It's a very complex system, but we can try to sense where the different parts meet, connect, work to form these bendable areas of the body. And so you're welcome to stay here. You can even add a little twist, turning around to look behind you, seeing what that's like. Or you can start to walk yourself down layer by layer. Maybe just hands down feels good. Could be elbows down. You could bring the floor to meet you with a bolster or some blankets. Or you could just come all the way down. So perhaps there's warmth, a feeling of tenderness, or maybe some brightness right on the outer edge of the hip socket. And we'll feel all the tissues start to do their thing. They're moving, there may be a little bit of dissolving of fascia, different platelets. We're bringing some fluid to this area. And maybe again, we're just looking for that moment where it goes from maybe this is a little uncomfortable to wow, that feels like a lot of space. That feels manageable. That feels good. Hopefully, it feels good. But if it's uncomfortable, can we stay with it? Can we work with it without running away? This is great training for real life when we really just want to escape whatever situation we're in. Standing in line at the DMV, don't want to do it, but it's like staying in Sleeping Swan for 5 minutes. Can we train ourselves to stay with our current experience? For at least one more minute. We'll try. to get out. You can come back in the way you came. Just kind of lifting layer by layer onto elbows and hands, walking your hands back, and then kind of lifting up slightly to just push that right leg back, up and out, coming into this kind of opposite motion, extending the leg back, maybe even lifting it even more. Oh, just engaging some shouldery muscles here. Seeing what that's like. Taking your arms for a ride for a moment. And then coming back into tabletop, maybe rocking the hips side to side. And actually, because it felt so good before, we can come back down and roll around again. Give your hips a little compression here, rolling the pelvic bowl into the floor. Just feeling all the bony parts gliding on the ground. Just mushing all that muscle. Feeling the weight of the body on the floor. You can stop at any part that feels like you want to just kind of roll there for a little bit, or you can just take it all for a ride. I love being in this room because I have so much space. But if you don't have that much space, you could always just rock back and forth from sits bone to sits bone. You can lean to one side and just kind of rock into the hip. And don't forget about the front. You've got that pubic bone. You can kind of feel the pointiness into the floor. The pelvis has those iliums, those little pointy parts on the sides, maybe feeling them touching the floor. Cool. And so now we can move on to the other side, taking our pigeon to the left, or sleeping swan. Left. Oh, we'll start the way we started on the other side. Left leg up and back. Just kind of lifting, kicking the heel into the air for a moment. Feeling this nice connection from the thigh to the belly. That's the psoas muscle. It's connecting the bottom to the top. Just feeling that big line of connection. And then bringing that left knee to left wrist. Bringing yourself into a nice position to get started with that rocking motion back and forth. The side's different, acknowledging the differences. How's the breath? Feeling the points of connection. Trying to imagine what it's like in the deep inner recesses of the tissues and the bones and the muscles, all the other stuff that's in there. Nerves, blood vessels. When you feel ready, you can bring that rocking to a stop, and you can stay upright. You can give yourself a little twist, and you can stay with any kind of upward motion, or you're welcome to bring this down into the sleeping swan, layer by layer, until you feel like this is where I want to be still for a little while. Obviously, if it feels like things are pulling away from the floor, bring the floor up to meet you. A little block under the hip or a blanket, bolster under the torso. Hands are really good for proppage though. They keep the weight so you can stay in any layer and go back and forth. But we'll attempt to find a little stillness. Relax the shoulders. Soften the face. Staying with the current experience. Not indulging in it, not pushing it away, just giving it some space, making it workable. You're a beautiful swan gliding across clear blue waters. The ripples in the pond are just thoughts in the mind. And we find stillness. The pond is clear. Take one cleansing breath. And layer by layer, now we'll start to bring ourselves back into this tabletop position, lifting up your hips to help bring that right or that left leg back out. Oh, feeling all the little itty bitty parts go blink, 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 blink. that's stuff. That's the body. And we can try this little arm thing again, just lifting, kicking that right or that left heel back in the air, and just lowering the torso, pushing the hands into the floor. No big deal. Just to see what's happening here. Letting that go. Let's come to sit. Great. So we'll come into a butterfly now. You can give your feet a little bit of a squeeze here. Say hello. Thank you, feet. It's always good to acknowledge the feet. And In your butterfly position, it's always recommended to place any support underneath your knees if you feel like they're coming up kind of high. But gravity will always just kind of work them down. The support will help them find the floor. And we can sit up tall with the feet just gently pressed towards one another. Find the length in your spine. Easy breaths, soft belly. And you can stay here, or you can come down layer by layer again, maybe just onto the palms. Maybe this is the point where you put a big pillow underneath you or bolster. And maybe you can come down a little bit more. Let the head and neck drop. And no props is good. Gravity works. You could always stack your hands into little fists and just bring your head onto the fist. And we're kind of working the same area of the hips here, but we're getting a different kind of bend in the lumbar spine. Let's see if we can stay with this for a little bit. Can you soften the skin? Notice any unnecessary holding. Just soften the outer layer. And allow that softening to spread out to the next inner layer. The next. Going deeper and deeper. Softening any gripping from the outside in. another kind of training for when we're in the DMV waiting in line, or we're waiting patiently for the next moment to arrive. Can we notice when we're tightening up? Can we soften? Let our insides flower. A sense of blooming inward and outward all at once. I'll be waiting in line on the grocery store and just notice that everything in my body is just like up at my ears. It's just like, okay, I have the choice to remember my body, to make some space in my mind and in my physical form. And I can stay with my experience without trying to get to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So hard to undo that condition. Okay, we can start to come out of this butterfly now. Been there for a while. Start to move your way back up and out. And we'll just take a mini Shavasana before we move on to the next stuff. Just to flatten out the whole body. Of course, you're welcome to take any movement. And now we'll move into deer. So let's start by bending the knees so that the left foot is on the outside of the right thigh. The knees are pointing towards the left, and your toes are somewhere pointing towards the right. And before we take our little bend over that left knee, can we take a little bit of a twist to the right? See what that's like. What's stopping us here? Is it this hip joint? Is it bone? What's going on? Come back to center and just take a little side bend over to the right. You can place the right hand down. The left arm can come up and over. That's weird too. Just feeling what that's like in the hips. The right one in particular is saying hello. Coming back to center. Now we can take our deer, turning towards the left side. Let's bend over the knee today. So you're just turning slightly so that you're just bending over this knee. And you can come all the way to the floor, or you can place something nice and cushy underneath you to settle into. And that hip crease on the left side is smiling. It's saying hello. Thank you for noticing me today. I've been waiting for you. won't be here very long, but I'll try to find a sense of ease. The deer are popping up too. They're kind of always lingering in my neighborhood, but they're saying, "It's spring, remember us." You see their little white tails hopping around. Magnificent creatures. Let's find some magnificence here. And now we'll transition to the other side, being very conscious of how the body might start to tense up as you transition. Just trying to keep this sense of spaciousness and ease, magnificence. We'll stop by the center and do a little bit of a windshield wiper, rolling the pelvis into the ground. And then knees can point to the right, feet can point to the left. That right foot is now on the left thigh. And we'll take a little twist to the left, feeling this natural stopping point. Twist to the right. Come back to center, left hand on the floor. Lift the right arm up, take a little side bend. Notice what you feel. Coming back through center, turning over towards that right knee. And you can stay positioned upright in your deer, or you can come layer by layer, lower yourself down until you can find the support you need. The leaf collectors are here, taking away the debris of the fall, cleaning up the clutter so we can pave the way for spring. How nice is that? We're doing the same thing inside our hips. raking the leaves of tissues, collecting them, and making some space for new things, new possibilities, new growth. Checking in again for any internal gripping, physically, mentally, consciously undoing the habit. Finding ease, spaciousness. We can start to transition out of this pose now, but try to keep that sense of space, moving softly, without urgency. Coming back to center, windshield wiper. We'll come onto our bellies for our last set of poses for today. Bring your arms out into a T shape. Feel the earth. We'll take an extended wing just to ease off the hips for a second and go into the upper body. Give the shoulders a chance to say hello. So kicking that right foot up into the air, bending the right knee, and then turning so that you're opening your chest towards the ceiling. Plant that right foot down on the ground with the knee pointed upwards. Now you've got your shoulder compressed in this extended wing pose. You can stay just like this with the right hand in front, or your right hand can come towards the back. Maybe it finds your left hand. You can clasp your fingers together. That's not necessary. We're still kind of working the hips a little bit here, not gonna lie, but the most concentration of sensation, I believe, is in between the shoulders and on the outside of that left shoulder that we're pressing into the ground. Relax the neck. And I'll read you a poem while you're in this extended wing. This is a favorite of mine by Antonio Machado. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that a spring was breaking out in my heart. I said, along which secret aqueduct, O water, are you coming to me, water of a new life that I have never drunk? Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that I had a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Last night, as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that a fiery sun was giving light inside my heart. It was fiery because I felt warmth as from a hearth, and sun because it gave light and brought tears to my eyes. Last night, as I slept, I dreamt, marvelous error, that it was God I had here inside my heart. We'll exit this pose the same way we came in. Right hand can come back to the front of the body, kind of just slide back to the right so that you can roll back onto the belly. Feel the floor. We'll take it up to the other side, this time lifting that left foot, bending the left knee, and bringing that left foot down, turning the chest up, left knee pointed towards the sky, maybe the hands clasp. Release the neck, let the neck relax. Last night in real life, as I, Sadie, slept, I had a dream that it was 2:00 and I realized I didn't teach my yoga class. And I was like frantically searching Zoom for any indication that people might still be there. And I literally was like, oh no, poor Annie. I thought that I just completely forgot about teaching on Zoom. So I don't have golden white combs of honey and beehives and a fiery sun of God in my heart. I just have Zoom on the brain, but it's funny. Thought I'd share.
I'm still laughing out loud.
I knew you'd get it, Annie. Last night I dreamt marvelous error. I didn't teach Zoom. Not everything is so beautiful and romantic. It just is neurosis. That will just stay in our broken or extended wig for a little bit less than one more minute. Let's let this go. Release this pose, unwind. Coming back to this T shape on the belly. And one more time, we'll just roll over. But this time, we'll just flop onto our backs, arriving in our Shavasana. Let's just tighten everything in the whole body. Tight, 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 tight feet, tight arms, tight face, tight belly, tight neck, tight, 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 squeeze, 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 and then let everything go. Let the organs go. Let the face just hands are soft. The hips are soft. Maybe give them one more little rock. Ankles rock side to side. Let the hips just release. Let the air go. Let the Shavasana just take over. Bringing a slight smile to your face. Just noticing what this gesture does, how it affects your insides, what it does to the thoughts. You can pretend there's a smile inside your hands, inside your feet, inside your heart. Breathing in this big, beautiful smile. Bring some movement back into the bones, into the body. Roll over to one side. Give yourself a nice big squeeze and hug. Congratulate yourself for showing up. It's a big deal. It's the best thing we can do for ourselves. Show up and stay. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. So we'll come to a seated position to close, dedicating our practice to all living beings.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be peaceful and at ease. Closing with a bow. Thank you.
Thanks, Sadie.
You're welcome.
Great sesh.
Awesome.